Hello, hello. Welcome one, welcome all, as you guys are filtering through the digital doorways. Thank you. Welcome to onX Off-Road's 101 Masterclass, where we will be covering all of kind of the basics that you need to know to get familiar with the onX off-road product. So, as folks are coming in, a couple housekeeping items. Number one, I cannot see you and I cannot hear you. As much as I wish we could have a real conversation, that's just not possible in this context. So if you have a question, please drop your question into the Q&A below. We have a team who is here dedicated to answering all of the burning questions that might arise as we go through tonight's kind of educational content. And then also let us know where you are tuning in from. There is a chat and there's a Q&A. I ask you guys, please separate the questions into the Q&A and leave the chat for more of the stoke, hearing where people are coming in from, et cetera, et cetera. So with that, let us know where you are tuning in from. I also want to hear how stoked you guys are for spring. I know I cannot wait for spring to come. It feels like up here where I am at, which I will tell you in just a minute, really feels like it has been a bit of a fickle start to spring. So let us know where you are coming in from. We will get started in just one more minute. I'm going to continue to let folks trickle in. And if you would be so kind, please let me know what rig or rigs you are running out there on the trails. Again, for those of you that are joining, welcome to March onX Off-Road's Masterclass, where we will be covering all of the basics that you need to know from the perspective of diving into the product. And for any of you who are joining, just one last PSA before we get started. I cannot see you. I cannot hear you. So please, if you have a question around tonight's content, please put that into the Q&A section down below. Save the webinar chat for Stoke and all of that. If you have a question, chances are it might get overlooked in the chat. So put it into the Q&A where we have a dedicated team who will be there to help answer those questions. So tonight you have myself, Andy Zielinski, hailing from the great state of Idaho up in the Panhandle. I am the product marketing and brand marketing manager for onX Off-Road. So it is my pleasure and my joy to be with you guys tonight. And what I am running out there on the trails is my 95 80 series Land Cruiser, affectionately named Larry. I've had him now for going up on 13 years and could not think of a better rig. So if you have a Land Cruiser of any series, let me see in the chat below. I will keep an eye out for that. And then what we have going on for tonight, I am going to cover off on kind of high level, and then we'll dive deep into a few features. And I will be covering off the kind of the key critical features you must know and get familiar with to be able to make the most of the onX off-road product. And then we'll get into a little bit of storytelling around how to plan an adventure and then do that adventure. So without further ado, I will also share that this is a time to be distracted. Okay. I know if you're like back in the day, teachers say, I don't know if you were, I didn't have a cell phone in high school, or at least the kind of cell phone we have now. But I do encourage you to bring up the map on your phone or on your desktop, however you are tuning in. I really encourage you guys to follow along. Stay tracking with me, but be as distracted as possible with the product. And then, excuse me, as you're playing around, if there are a couple questions that you might have with the product, again, please drop those questions into the Q&A section. So let's go ahead. Let's get started. I am working from my desktop view. I will in a little bit go over the phone, but just so you guys know, this menu bar right here is the same menu bar that you will see in your phone. So if you're following along, I'll just quickly move to my phone real quick. You'll see that the bar is right here along. So if you're following along and trying to orient where I'm at based on the desktop versus mobile, that's just a quick orientation for you guys who are following along on mobile. So let's get started. I'm going to go back to my desktop view. And we are going to kind of just start at the top. And what I mean is truly start at the top. So here, I'm going to hover over what is called the activity filter. And this is usually just where I guide people to kind of discover the ins and outs of the product and the initial kind of experience therein. And so go ahead, tap the activity tab, and you'll be able to see that there's a couple different activities you can choose from, whether it's focusing mainly on dirt trails or if you have a preference for snow. We are going to remain kind of focused on dirt, especially because we are moving out of snow season. Well, depending on where you're at, seems like some areas are still getting snow, but I am hopeful that it's going to dry out here soon. No offense, all you snow lovers out there, but we'll stay focused on the dirt for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom my map out just a little bit. I'm up here in North Idaho. That's too far. I'm up here in North Idaho, as I mentioned, and right now, because the rig I am running is a full-size, high clearance 4x4 truck, I have selected trail types that will meet that category. So stuff that I am specifically interested in, but I'm going to go ahead and select all, and you can see that more trails as they are all kind of different colors from blue to black to green. I don't see any red just right here. They start to populate the area quite a bit more. And one of the things that's really nice about how our map is designed is at a really high level, you get a chance to see the different difficulty types based on color. So if you are new to onX Off-Road and you're just trying to get a sense of what kind of trails and what kind of trails are associated based on the difficulty, we've got that organized by color. And if you are interested in how to organize those trails specific by ride type, then you can go through and filter accordingly. So you can just tap single track. Again, this is for our two-wheel moto friends. If you're out there ripping around on ATVs or UTVs, you can select the 50 or 60 inch and you can see the map slowly starting to begin to populate with more trails. And then again, because I'm a full-size high clearance enthusiast, that's what I'm specifically driving most of the time. Now I have my trails that are showing the high clearance and full width roads. So before we continue, I'm going to tap into one of the trails because this is really important to kind of get familiar with. These trails, we pull in this data from a number of different sources, but the rich guided trails, which are these colored trails you see on the screen, they are actually mapped by a group that we call the Trail Guides. It's a hired group that is that works really closely with the onX off-road crew. And the intent is for them to go out and map these trails and be able to provide a little bit of context into what you can specifically expect out on the trail from their perspective. And it's also important to note that there's a whole vetting process that happens. So not everyone and their dog can be a trail guide. We do take this seriously because trail information is really critical and important to us. And so as you can see, I'm going to go ahead, actually going to select Beauty Cedar 1575, and we're just going to go down the list of what kind of information is on this guided trail. So you can see at a glance that the distance, roughly about 10 miles. You get the high point, low point. This probably matters, especially during the shoulder seasons when weather is a little bit unpredictable, depending on the type of terrain and elevation that you're getting into. It will have a difficulty. Again, as I mentioned, the trails are color coded. So green resembling the easy difficulty status. It also has a technical rating. And so the technical rating will scale from 1 being the easiest, as you can imagine, all the way up to 10. As an example, I was out um, in Georgia just last week. So if I look a little blurry-eyed, it's because I'm a little bit jet lagged. But we were out at Beasley Knob. If anyone here is in the Georgia area or has ran Beasley Knob, give me a shout out in the chat. But if you've not been out there, I highly, highly recommend. Season out there will open sometime in April. I think the gates will open sometime in April. But there's a trail that the technical rating is an 8, and holy moly, it is absolutely an 8. It is gnarly. And where I sit, maybe it could even classify as a 9. Really, really technical trail, beautiful trail, but technical. But it's great just to get this information at a glance because that really helps me or you, hopefully, to be able to get a sense of, okay, what kind of trail do I want to run today? How do I want the day to go? Am I out just for a leisurely, drive down the trail, or do I want to get into some obstacles and have some fun, trying to winch myself out of some sketchy scenarios? Information's right here. This will also tell you the route type. So if it's a point to point or a loop, the best times to run the trail. So here you see summer, fall, I would argue spring as well. But, this is appropriately categorized because I do know that this stretch does not get a lot of sunlight. It has a propensity to freeze over. And so I would agree that summer, fall, and maybe late spring is the best times. And then as I was mentioning, the trail guide who submitted this trail, Mitch Barney, shout out Mitch, probably not on the call, but you will see where or who submitted the trail report. And then quick glance, if you're just kind of bopping around different trails, you get to see what kind of accessibility is for this trail. So here it's accessible by all ride types. I can attest that is accurate. And then there's going to be a description. So, depending on how much you want to geek out, the trail guides all have sort of a structure in terms of how to provide information and how much depth to go into. Some go into more depth, others just kind of cover the high level, but it's nice to see the description as well as photos. And again, difficulty rating. And if you're curious as to like Andy, just remind me how do you guys break down the difficulty rating? Here's a quick look. I'll go ahead and just do this one more time real quickly. I'll make sure to slow down in case anyone is having a hard time following. But as I've scrolled down this window here, you'll see a little question mark next to difficulty rating. And anytime that you're curious, we do a really great job of trying to provide as much extra detail or context to a feature in kind of the nuances within that feature. So if you're curious, hit the question mark. This will kind of outline what the difficulty rating kind of status is, how it is categorized, the color coding system. And then again, if you're really curious, like what does this actually mean? You can spend some time kind of marking that. So I'm going to go ahead, click out of that, and as you're sort of kind of looking at this card, there's a couple other things just to be aware of. So I'm going to scroll back to the top. We are moving kind of throughout the United States. We are moving from the winter into spring, which means for a lot of trails start drying out. Hopefully, gates start opening up if you're in an area where there are closed gates. And one feature that we rolled out last year that I continue to harp on, and it's a really, really valuable tool, especially during the transition seasons, is trail reports. So you can see right here on the screen at the very top, there's a tab that I'm hovering over, but there's also a nice little window that will display a recent written trail report. And so I'm going to simply go ahead and tap trail reports. This kind of just opens a new tab in and of itself. And you can see probably appropriately so, the last trail report was given by Mr. Thompson. Looks like at the end of November and temporarily closed. Yep, this makes sense. Close gate, post sign. And you can see that I was out there in June. But they do tend to close the gates for seasonality purposes. But just so you can get a sense of like what this flow looks like, I'm gonna go ahead and tap add a trail report. And today was a busy day. I got stressed out and I wanted to go on a little trail run. So I'm gonna go ahead. Don't tell my boss, please. Just keep this between us. All right. Uh, handshake, handshake. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna select the date that I went out, the 20th. This is optional, but this helps for context. What time did I go out? Let's just say midday. I wanted to skip out on a midday meeting. Which rig did I take out? Was it Big Gus or Larry the Land Cruiser? I'm gonna say Larry the Land Cruiser. And then you also have, I'm not going to get into this right now, but I know there'll be questions. You have the ability to add vehicles to your garage. That's simply over here where you see the keys. It's a little bit of a different experience on the phone. You're gonna have to tap that upper left kind of hamburger menu and you can access it that way. But I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna say Larry the Land Cruiser, it's already in my garage. And let's just kind of run through a couple scenarios here. Okay, we're in between seasons. We've had a lot of wet weather out here. We've had snow. I am anticipating getting into some of the trails with some obstruction, with some blowdown of trees. That's just what I'm expecting. So let's just pretend that's the case. I'm going to tap obstructed with the assumption that this trail is in fact open and not a closed gate. And let's just say I come across what's obstructing the trail. I'm going to say down tree and some washouts. You can have a single select or you can have a multiple select. Again, please use your best judgment here. It does say optional, but more context helps the community know what they're getting into. How busy was the trail? Just me, because most people are probably working. I was skipping out on work. And then you have the option of adding photos. Again, I would encourage that. So if you're anything like me, I am always going out with my phone. It's taking photos everywhere I am, always. I've got thousands of photos I always have to filter through. But that said, if you've come across a section where you're like, hey, I didn't have a chainsaw with me, or I decided I was going to turn around at the down tree because I didn't want to deal with like winching and pulling it off to the side, whatever the case is, a photo helps with context. That's amazing. Please continue to do that. Describe what you saw on trail with as much detail as you can. and then hit submit. I won't submit this, but you get the gist. This is important because this is our ability, or this is our way of allowing customers and community to stay engaged and up to date with what's happening on the trail. The trail is a living, breathing thing, and it changes with season. It changes by the week. So please, please, please utilize the trail reports where you recreate. We also know that I'm not going to click into that, but we know that clean and cleared trails results in open trails. So if trails get messed up, if there's a lot of downfall, if people are not taking care of the trails and no one knows about it, then that could lead to trail closure. So please do your part. It's really important to us as a brand and a product. So the last thing I'm going to get into on this is, let's just say I'm sort of in the scouting mindset and this trail is of interest to me. You have the ability to save this trail to your content. I'll get into where this lives and what that means in a second, but just go ahead and hit that bookmark. Oops, hit that bookmark, and that's going to save right here in this section, which I will get to in just a minute. So that sort of concludes the activity tab. Actually, there will be a little bit more that I'm going to dive into. Actually, I'll just do that now because we're on the topic. I'm going to switch to my phone. And as I switch to my phone, I'm going to pull up the activity one more time because we just released a new feature. If you have been paying attention to the marketing, kudos. If you have not, shame on you. Just kidding, no shame. But we have just released a new feature called the cell coverage layer feature. And so what this does is this effectively, and I'll just go ahead and tap on this so you can read it along with me. The cell coverage layer represents the ability of mobile, broadband, and voice service from major cell providers. That's going to be AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, just so you know. And it's sourced from the U.S. Federal Comms Commission and Broadband Map. And this will display the lowest available service for a given provider. So let's go ahead and you'll see the different 5G, 4G, and voice and text coverage. So let's just go ahead and click out of that. And I'm going to select AT&T cell coverage. And then I'm going to zoom out and you're going to see kind of the hexagons of where I have coverage and strong coverage. So you can see right here, I'm just drawing my cursor where my GPS puck is. So if you're ever using your mobile device and maybe I'm being a little too granular here, but this blue dot represents your GPS puck, and probably it's a no-brainer, but just for the sake of covering bases, as I scroll past kind of my main kind of area where you would expect to have cell coverage, I'm going to go out into the Coeur d'Alene National Forest, and I can assure you that it gets spotty quick. And there have been times where I thought, actually, you can see that I have a waypoint where I was out on a scouting mission just the other week, and I had very, very spotty cell coverage. And you can see based on this layer that, yeah, that makes sense. I actually have a very light transparency of the cell coverage layer right there, and it's going to be hit and miss. This would have been huge for me if I would have known where I was going to get and lose cell coverage. So just one more tool in your tool belt to keep you prepared and safe out on the trails. If you have not explored the cell coverage layer, I would encourage you guys to do so this weekend. Play around with it, find where you will have or lose cell coverage. Now, let's go ahead and move back to desktop, okay? We are going to work our way to this Discover tab right here. So this will be your furthest left on your navigation bar on your mobile device. I'm going to go ahead and tap the Discover. And what this is going to do, this is going to pull up again. Oh, nope, I don't want to do that. This will pull up around 200 miles perimeter of trails in the area that you are exploring. And what's really nice about this is if you're on a road trip or if you have a trip coming up that you're really excited about getting into some new trail, what I would say is use the Discover tab to start kind of mapping out different trails that you are curious about, that you want to explore. Let's go ahead and see what Marie's Saddle is all about. It's up here. Let's see what kind of riding. It's accessible by all vehicles. Hey, our main man, Mitch, he also submitted this trail. So thank you, Mitch. And let's just go ahead and see what this has to offer. About 12 miles. There is no trail report. So what are you supposed to do after you leave, after you run the trail? Leave a trail report. And then, yeah, get into it, have some fun, save it to your content. So the Discover tab, a really helpful tool if you're just kind of killing time or if you are intentionally planning your next outing. Use the Discover tool to find some more trails. And again, you can filter that based on the trail difficulty that you want to get into. Next up, let's go ahead and say I am kind of scouting some areas, Clarney Lake to the 4th of July, and I want to kind of explore this area. It's a really, really fun area. And I know, again, because I've been out here, this area will lose cell coverage quickly. Um, William, no, iPad would not be equivalent to desktop. It would be equivalent to your phone. So if you're curious, just follow along the lower nav bar and that will be kind of your orientation. Um, so offline maps is really, really probably I would say one of the most critical tools that I'm always using an offline map, just full stop. And it's important to note, especially kind of in the context to what I just shared with cell coverage layer. Cell coverage layer will help you understand where you are going to get that cell signal, but we all know that that can be fickle, and we need to have that redundancy in our planning arsenal to make sure that we are not going to find ourselves in a sticky situation. And so an offline map is really going to help preserve the area that you want to go recreate in and make sure that you have accessibility to all of the data that's on the map, regardless of cell coverage, okay? So the two kind of work hand in hand, but also independent of each other, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to tap a new offline map, and you can scroll by using the cursor, just kind of moving around where you want that map tile to really center in on. Generally, best practice that I have adopted is that I'm going to have a corner of the trailhead, or I will anchor as much as I can the trailhead to a corner, but I will leave a little bit of detail outside of the trail or the forest, simply so that I have, again, more context to kind of remind myself of the scenario or situation that I'm in, because sometimes the trail can all look very, very similar. Sometimes, all the trees start blending together. You're like, oh my gosh, like, where am I? So a little bit of visual reference or visual cue just to kind of like help give that kind of safety measure for your planning. At least for me, that's what I like to do. You do you though. And then you can choose your satellite imagery detail. So as you can see, it's broken down based on the zoom level. So zoom level simply is how much you want to click in or zoom out and what you're going to be able to see at that zoom level. So this is really helpful to determine like, okay, for me, for the most part, I want to zoom in to this section because it looks like there's a junction that I want to make sure that I'm tracking. It does look like there are some other trails that offshoot here. Maybe they're hiking trails, maybe they are logging trails, but it's not mapped on by the trail guide. So I just want to make sure that my detail is going to be actually, I don't need to be that zoomed in, but I want that much detail right there. So I'm covering that. Go ahead and save this, add a name to it, and I'm gonna say Clarny Lake to Beauty Creek. Because I guess in my mind, I think maybe I'll go check out the Beauty Creek Divide Trail. I don't know. I'm making it up, but you can name the offline map whatever you want to make sure that at a glance you can click into your offline map and know what it is you're searching for. You can add some notes, so it's like, hey, if I want to pinch and zoom here to make sure that I hit the right junction, make the right turn, you can leave notes there. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save. Now, I'm going to caveat that I'm going to save this. There will be an action you see on the screen on desktop. This is slightly different than mobile. I will explain, so just bear with me. So I'll hit save. This has been saved to my account. Please note, this is really important. The offline maps do not download your computer. Open on your mobile device, select the offline map tab, click icon, and make sure that you have downloaded it and it's saved to your device. Okay, got it. Now you can see this green perimeter or this green box of the area that is covered in my offline map. Okay, quick transition time. Bear with me. I'm going to move back over to my phone and I'm going to show you what this looks like on the mobile because this is important to know. All right, so I'm coming down here to the offline tab. I'm going to tap offline tab and I'm glad this happened. So hopefully you all can see these boxes that are candy cane color coded. This is telling me that these maps right here are actually not downloaded. They have been saved in terms of the perimeter and the detail that will be gained once I do save these, but these are not saved. You can see also, because I have my sorting set from new to old, that Colony Lake to Beauty Creek is at the top of the list. And you can see this little arrow suggesting that this needs to be downloaded. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tap that guy and let's go to, and then sorry, I did that kind of quickly, but I just simply tapped the header or the title of my offline map and it zoomed me right to where my offline map is. You can see that I still have the cell coverage layer on. Great. You can also see that some of the cell coverage does actually get really spotty, as I was talking about a minute ago. And here is sort of my waypoint to indicate where the trail will begin. And I will now have all of this detail, as much as I zoom in, saved onto my mobile device. And no matter the situation of cell coverage, this map within that green box will be preserved at the satellite imagery resolution you selected when you went in to save, which I did medium. and that's going to get you as much detail as you possibly need on the trail. Some, if you're in a really, really technical area, or you are in a network of trails where there's a lot of kind of junctions where you just really want to make sure that you are navigating, whether it's an OHV park or just a trail system that has a ton of intersections, that you might want to select multiple tiles at the highest resolution possible so you can just really see the nuance of the trail. And then one last thing before I get back to desktop, that green box, I just have a saying, it's cheesy. I apologize. I got kids. You start to learn these things. But green means good to go. Okay. So say it with me in the chat. Green means good to go. If you see your green box after you've saved an offline map, whether that's the check mark or that box on the map, you are good to go. If you see the candy cane colored squares, that means that that map still needs to be downloaded. And if you're like, oh my gosh, Andy, I thought I saved it. I'm going out, heading out to a trail, and there's a couple tiles that have not been saved. How do I do that quickly? Oh, easy. Let's do it. Tap tap that perimeter. That's gonna identify which map needs to be downloaded. What do? You hit that green or that arrow, downward arrow, and you can see it is loading up, and green means you're good to go. All right, cool. Thanks for playing along, Jonathan and Scott. Okay, we're gonna move back to desktop. Are you guys with me still? As I'm transitioning, let me know if you guys are with me. Yep, cool, right on. Nope, that's not what you want to see. Desktop 2. Cool, cool. All right, let's move our way back to the My Content tab. Okay, organization is king. And so what I would encourage you guys to do is really get familiar with this section, My Content tab. This is a really, this is your library. This is where you start to save and store all of the different, all of the different routes that you've created, the waypoints that you've saved. If you're scouting an area, and you've drawn kind of an area or a shape for where you might want to like put up camp for the night, this is where you're going to find all of that information. So starting at the top, you're going to see what's called folders. And folders are a really great tool to keep a bunch of different kinds of content all saved into a single area. So if you've not been following along, this is just a really quick plug for something that's been super fun. We have a new content series called Rugged Adventures, where we are partnering with a bunch of folks who are going out and mapping multi-day, multi-night adventures that will live eventually in the product in a cool new feature. We're kind of giving the world a sneak peek as to what's to come. But you can access these really cool rugged adventures through the folder share. So our friends at Flex Rocks and Rollovers, they created the adventures, the secret trails of the Southeast. And what they've done is oh, they've put together, it's getting tired. Okay, they've put together this route where you can see all of the different kind of aspects to their trails, and they have all of these waypoints within the thank you. We are sharing. Yeah, sorry, I'm going to stop real quickly. We are going to be sharing these folders in the chat. I would encourage you guys to save those folders. This is a really great chance to get in, play with these, have some fun learning about how other folks are creating really epic adventures and saving them in their product. But you can see that they have a bunch of waypoints, 25 waypoints. I'm going to go ahead and click into this one. Our friend Marvin has given us some notes as to what to expect. This is where Otto's Loop continues on the left, or Easy Rider. We did not finish Otto's Loop to the left. And again, there's just some content and context that you can add to these. Again, all of this is able to be contained in a single folder, which then would live in your content. So let's just say, let's go back to, oops, I turned off location. Of course I did. Let's just go back to my area, my neck of the woods, and I'm going to show you how to kind of build a trip and build a folder. And again, this might be fairly quick. I apologize. Um, but you'll get the hang of this if you play around with this enough on your own time. I'm just going to show you some starting points. So let's go ahead and just say in this area, um, I want to map out to Beauty Bay and Harrison, and I want to take the family out for a camping trip or just a day of exploration. I'm going to start by mapping using some waypoints. The waypoints are up here in the top right. If you are in your mobile device, you're going to see 1, 2, 3, 4, or second from the right. You're going to see a little like Swiss Army knife icon that says tools. Go ahead and tap tools. That's where you'll access the waypoints and the route builder tool. But let's just go ahead and grab add a waypoint. And I'm gonna move this guy, let's just say like somewhere on the trail, just because I want to make sure we get through this. Let's just say at this little switchback, I'm going to say this is, I'm making this up. Do not suggest anything more than that. But let's just say like recently used, here's the different kind of icons that we have. If you are curious about like, oh, like I want to do something a little bit more fun, or what are some different options you might have? We've got a ton, and we're adding to this library pretty much weekly, it feels like. But you can have anything from cell tower to a cave to a cliff to a dirt bike. But I think this area is known for Sasquatch sightings. So we're gonna go out and great suggestion, William. I will take that into consideration next time. Um, we will. We have our Sasquatch waypoint. Cool, and this is going to be the color. No, no. See, okay. This is how I like to plan, and you're learning this in real time. Green icon or waypoint usually, like I think would visually make sense for me as I'm like just driving down. It's quick for me to reference. But green on green on green, I don't like. So let's go ahead and I'm gonna just hit blue. Depending on how you kind of read colors, you can choose whichever color you want to, but I'm gonna say, let's just do blue for now. And then I'm going to save this to folder, add to folder. And I might be going quick, so let me just like back up and slow down for 1 second. I hit save to the waypoint. I'm gonna edit this just to be like, look for Sassy because it's gonna be Sasquatch. Hit save, big orange button. Cool. Now I want to add this to a folder. So add to folder right down here. And then let's just say I'm going to use nope, I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to create a new folder, hit the plus sign, fam, bam, trip, whatever you want to name it for your own sake and sanity. And look for Sassy was added to that folder. And so as I start to then create routes, which I can show you really quickly, let's just go create route. I went up to the tools right up here, that squiggly line, and I'm just gonna map a route. And you can see that it is snapping directly to the trail, although it did jump right up here. So I'm just gonna make sure See, it's going to try to choose the fastest route possible. So sometimes you're going to have to trick it to make sure that it is grabbing to the trail that you're intending. And then I'm going to build a route right all the way to Sassy. I'm going to name it Route to Sassy. And then you're going to have your fun little detail here. You can color code your route any color that you wish, and then hit save. Add to folder. I'm going to go ahead and add to the Fan Bam trip. And again, now I've added a waypoint, I've added a trail, and you can really start to layer in the different types of content that you want into this. And depending on the level or depth of planning you want to get into, you can kind of do that at your own leisure, depending on how much detail you want to add to each piece of content. So I'm going to go back to the kind of main view of the My Content. You can see that the Fan Bam trip is up top. You can scroll down to see all of the different folders that you have created. You can also see all of the different content that you've added to the app or to the map. And this can be anything from the tracks. So a track is if you've hit the record and track on your mobile device, that is going to create a breadcrumb based on your GPS. So you can access your tracks that way. You can build the route like I just showed you and have routes live sort of like independent of a folder if they're just like individual outings, or if you want them housed into a parent folder, you can do that as I just showed you, waypoints, etc. I'm going to pause and, as Will mentioned, again, great advice. This is not split screen enabled at the moment, and I'm not going to test my luck right now, but I'm going to go back to my mobile view and I'm going to show you guys one last feature before we wrap that is mobile specific. Okay. So let's go ahead and let's go back to the My Content folder. I'm going to pull this guy up. Oh, it better show up. Well, let's just pretend it did show up. And let's just go ahead and tap this for the sake of storytelling. Okay. So let's pretend that this is my find sassy waypoint. New feature that we just rolled out is our integrated navigation solution. So you'll see right down here this option to navigate to that marker, that waypoint. So I'm going to simply tap navigate. And now you have the option to use onX navigation and stay within the product ecosystem versus getting popped out to Apple Map or Google Map. This will also give you turn-by-turn voice command directions while on trail. So really awesome feature that we have, and this will give you kind of the estimated time to arrival, fastest route, and then you can just simply hit navigate and go, and you are off to the races or you're off to the trails as it were. So I encourage you guys to build out your trips, build out your plans, put them into the folders. Once you have your plans locked, loaded, and ready to hit the trail, be sure to use the onX navigation to get you to your trail or your adventure destination. And then with that, we are at time. So I thank you guys so much for joining. We are looking for we have what's coming up, Rugged Adventures. If you have not paid attention or you're just like, oh, what is Rugged Adventures? Please check it out. We have the link to the page posted below. So check it out. Thank you so much for joining. Also, we have some new gear that has hit the merch shop. So if you're interested in kitting yourself out with some really great new swag, Rugged Adventures merch just dropped. Go in, get a new hat, treat yourself. We got a new flannel. Yeah, enjoy. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Happy trails and hope to see you out there soon. Take care.